Hey everyone, and welcome to Quantum Acacias. My name is Dee Dee, and I am so glad that we found each other. Okay, you guys, welcome to Adventures in the Astrals. I have been trying to do this Adventures in the Astrals for so long. Today is in a little bit, it's going to be the full moon, so it's June 11th. I'm going to be putting out the full moon pick a card reading as well. So for some people, it's going to be early in the morning on the, did I say today was the 11th or the 10th? Today is the 10th. Some people, it's going to be really early in the morning on the 11th. And I think Pacific time, are we the same as Pacific time? I think it is like 12 a.m. So I think maybe for everyone. Wait, do we have people ahead of us? Anyways, my point is I'm going to be putting out that pick a card reading and this one together. So maybe this is really connected into kind of this full moon theme. And I know that the full moon was super huge out here in Arizona. So I would say a theme that's been coming up, okay? Because I'm thinking about this moon and I'm thinking about the day that I had today. And there's been this theme, which I talk about a little bit on the pick a card reading for the general message. There's been this theme of, on time is actually ahead of time. Ahead of time is actually super ahead of time. And on time is actually behind time. If you get what I'm saying. So let's say, easiest example is like work or school, right? If you get to your class, it starts at 9 o'clock and you get to it on time at 9 o'clock, you're actually late. Now, technically, based on the system, okay, and this is about Saturn, but I feel like this is about the two faces, which is like the two realities, okay? The two realities going on. There's the main reality going on, and then there's like the unspoken reality. We'll call the main reality like standard practice, okay? We'll call the hidden or spiritual reality bonus points, okay? Some people are actually being, let's say, looked at based on bonus points and not standard. So if you're going by standard, you're going to fall behind, okay? Okay, so let's say class starts at 9 o'clock, you get into your seat at 9 o'clock on the dot. You are technically on time based on the standard of the class. However, we know that for you to actually be prepared for the class, you want to get there like 10 minutes ahead, 15 minutes ahead, 30 minutes ahead. Sometimes if you have a test or something, you actually want to get there maybe I don't know if it's always possible to be an hour ahead because sometimes there's other classes going on. But you get my drift, like even just sitting in the building. I remember in college, sometimes I would just go sit in a building and then find an empty class just to kind of brush up on what it was the test was about, okay? And so we know that of course, preparing for the class also the night before, making sure you have your pens out, your notebook out, and things like that is ahead of time, okay? By the time you stroll up in class and it's 9:15, you're super late, and not only are you late, but it's like a compounding late. This is also like bills. It's like a compounding late. So not only have you probably are rushing, not getting there on time, you probably have left some stuff behind. You probably haven't done this. You probably haven't done that. And so you are ill prepared for that class. Now, if you continue to do that, you continue to show up late, then you're also compounding on missing out on the first 15 minutes. Now, sometimes, certain teachers, they start off the class slow. Some teachers get right on into it and things like that. So it really depends. But at the very least, you're missing out on the beginning stages of it and things like that. Okay, I had to pause for a second. My husband was bringing me a yummy, delicious Olipop. Okay, so anyways, this is about on time, ahead of time, and late, and how really ahead of time is compounding, because if you are really ahead of time, you're putting things out the night before, preparing for a test a month before, doing a little extra work than what's necessary for the class, and that could look like, especially in present day, you can get on ChatGPT and ask it to explain certain concepts or give you something more on history to, help it really sink in. There's a lot of things that you can do for extra credit, but also just going the extra mile, and then you're super prepared for the class, and that has compounding benefits as well. Maybe you don't wait until, each week on the syllabus. Maybe you get a little bit ahead of the syllabus, and so you're always ahead of the quizzes, you're always ahead of the test, okay? Now, all the time, that's not exactly, we're able to do it, but anyways, just being a Capricorn, I recommend it, because that has been the biggest thing that I have been learning with this full moon, is along with being ahead of time and on time, which is ahead of time, you also hit your goals and you hit your markers. And so there are certain realities and timelines that you don't even have to walk on. If you hit your goals and you hit your markers. If you don't hit your goals and your markers, it doesn't always mean that it's going to turn out bad for you. Being late doesn't always mean it's going to turn out bad for you. However, you just have more of a flexibility and a higher probability of things working out really great for you. Even better when you are on time, you are hitting the goals, and you are doing like what you're supposed to be doing in the time frame. Now, along with that, right, because I'm also thinking about Venus going into Taurus on 6/6, which I associate that more with like a grounded number of humanity and carbon bodies and melanin and things like that. The other thing has to do with setting a stage. That's not really what I wanted to say, not a stage. But maybe for some people it's setting a stage, but setting an environment where you can thrive. That means having people around you who also understand the concepts of timing, perfect timing. It's like Dance Dance Revolution, hitting the right steps at the right time, who understand perfect timing, right? Because Gemini is like the local town hero. Typically they stay in their hometowns. Typically, like, a lot of people know them in their hometowns, whereas the opposite energy of that, Sagittarius, rules overseas travel. Typically people that leave home, maybe even expand out to, other different markets and things like that. And so it can, kind of this dichotomy of like when you have this kind of air that everyone, or you're really comfortable, sometimes we can get very lax and not hit our goals. So that's what I want to say about that. And I feel like to a certain extent, this dream has been kind of building up to this. Now, I'm not exactly sure in a lot of ways exactly how, but that's the feeling that I get. Okay, I had to drink my drink a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure that I hit this goal, because I was out like Ubering, and I was like, I'm doing like an electric vehicle, and it takes a while to charge it, and it really gives you like appreciation for like how many miles versus how much you drive, and it gives you like more of a focus on how many miles you're actually driving and what you're doing with those miles, which I think is also kind of equivalent to time. What you're actually doing with your minutes, with your seconds, with your hours. So anyways, I was like, I need to get home by 9:30, because Ray and I are going to watch a show, and we got these little kava shots that we're going to do. So we're going to chill out, relax, and do some date night tonight. And so I was like, you know what, I'm only going to do one Uber, because charging the car took, literally charging electric vehicles like takes like an hour and a half, 2 hours to do with fast charging. Like slow charging, it's like even less than that. I don't want to take up too much time, so I want to hit this goal, because it's 9 o'clock, 9:30. I want to do this in like 25 minutes. But I feel like this time thing is really important. Excuse me. So anyways, I took this Uber, and literally it brought me like 10 minutes away from my house. And I was like, okay, where is it going to bring me like afterwards? And then it literally brought me like 3 minutes from my house. So I literally circled the block, relatively speaking, as far as like, I said I was only doing one trip, and then literally that one trip brought me right back to my house, because you can go everywhere with Uber. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Okay. And I think it dropped me off. Like, I think the drop off was on Oberon Street, which is very significant because it reminds me like this fairy king. Isn't that Oberon? Okay. And then we're going to get into this dream, because this dream has been coming up so much. Okay. Oberon meaning, yeah, it's the king of the fairies. Yeah, the king of the fairies from medieval folklore and A Midsummer's Night Dream. And it means a noble bear or a royal bear. Okay, he's a prominent figure in fairy lore, often depicted as the husband of Titania, the queen of the fairies. And I feel like this is significant to this dream. I'm not exactly sure how, but I feel like it is significant about magic and magical abilities, and like this idea of like junk DNA and plasmatic beings. So at another time I'll go into it deeper, but I want to talk about this dream. Okay, so I had this dream on 8/23/2024. Over the past week, I've been trying to get this dream out, and it just has not been the right time. And there's the right time, not the best time, and another perspective of time. But I guess it just wasn't the right time. But I literally been seeing 8/23 so much. And how my life plays out, it's very rare, and it's 9:03 right now. Ooh, 11:22. It's very rare that I have things come up in succession to each other, like in the same days. So things for me usually happen spirally. So I see something, and then the next time I see it might be a week later, and it's compounded on that. Then a month later, and it's compounded on that. There's very few things that I have that literally show up every day. This 8/23 was showing up every single day for the last week. Okay. So if your birthday is August 23rd, hey, message me. My email is in the description, because there might be a connection there. Anyways, I've been seeing 8/23 everywhere. And I guess they're like, this is really, really important, so make sure you talk about it. And this full moon is actually happening almost directly on my north node. It's like a degree off. I mean, not a degree, it's a second off. And almost on my Mercury, which is like 19 seconds off. So this is a big moon, and it was huge. Okay, so let's get into this. So on this day, the first dream that I had, and I'm going to do 1240 as a timestamp. The first dream that I had when I went to sleep was I was in the void space, and I was brought to an event. Okay. Now, I'm not sure exactly where this event was, but it seemed like it was an event with a lot of different people, and it was like a spiritual event. Okay. And I guess I was kind of remote viewing it. But this was kind of like what I call the super conscious unconscious. That's what I'm calling it right now. So it's super consciousness, is an intelligent consciousness, but it is working on a system of unconsciousness. So I'm not sure why I was there, and I'm sure the people, they definitely don't know I was there, because they didn't even know that I was there. So it's something that is unconscious to me, but it's super conscious and intelligence that brought me there, right? Because typically when we talk about remote viewing, people are giving you things. But I have this happen a lot in the Astrals, where it feels like I'm almost being summoned different places. And then sometimes it feels like there's an intelligence that feels like something is important for me to pay attention to. This is one of those times where something felt like it was important for me to look at this event. Okay. So there was a man and a woman. The woman was much older, kind of like a grandmother figure. I would say that she was definitely probably in her late 60s or something like that. And the man, I would say like he's close to 40 or something like that. And so they're having this conversation, and this guy is like very intelligent, very put together and things like that. But his conversation was kind of getting sexual. And it wasn't like overtly sexual. It was kind of undertones of sexuality. And I'm not sure if he wasn't like having these undertones. And it was like in the context of spirituality as well, like masculine, feminine energies. But there was like this overt, covert or overt. No. I think it's like covert, subtle kind of, underlying theme of sexuality and like explaining feminine and masculine principles in sexual kind of ways. Okay. And so this elder, I will call her an elder, she brought the conversation very gracefully and very sternly to the Black woman. Okay. And in this context, I am talking about women who specifically have, in this case, it felt like West African heritage, specifically West Africa. So that's not the entirety of Black women or women of color, but in this context, that's what I'm saying. And so she started talking about the Black woman in general, and feminine energy in general. Okay. And it was a very nice kind of putting things into perspective and kind of gently raising the vibration of the conversation, to take it out of a sexual perspective and to talk about a more general but specific energy, okay? Now, as she's talking to him, I'm in the void space looking at them. So this is very much like Stranger Things 11, how she walks in the void and then she's able to see people on the grid, though we can't see the grids all the time. And it's kind of like she's walking up to them and they're talking and stuff and she's observing them. This is exactly like that, okay? So I'm observing. So I'm not directly in the scene, but it almost does kind of look kind of like a stage though, now that I think about it. 909. Okay. And so as I'm listening, there is a Black mama energy that comes to talk to me. Now, I don't know if this is an aspect of this elder. I don't know if it's an ancestor of this elder. I don't know if it is, a goddess or something. I don't know. But she starts talking to me and she tells me in like a very low voice. She was like, I want you to remember that the Black woman was one of the most powerful beings on the Isle of Man, in ancient times, and you need to remember that. And when she said that, it was very interesting because I had remembered that I did this Black mirror visualization one time, and I'll talk about it at another time because every now and then I do Black mirror, obsidian mirrors from like volcanic ash, visualizations, and every time they are powerful. Like every time they're powerful. And so one of the times I did this visualization, I ended up seeing myself as this old hag, like buzzard kind of ink block situation. And so I was like, oh, that makes sense. And it led me to the story on the Isle of Mannix, the Mannix people. And their story of Tehi Tegi, okay, Tehi and then Tegi. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on that just yet. I'll probably do another story on that. But this has to do with Astraics, okay, Astraea. Now the Rix is a king or queen, is a position of power, so that's why it's Rix, Astrix, okay? King or queen of the stars, okay? Astraea, the star, okay? And this, I believe, has to do with these mythologies of these goddesses, these feminine beings falling from the stars to earth, which is very reminiscent of the Kaaba, these black stones, okay? and and the stone of the goddess, and the stone of the god. I'm not gonna get into that, but the stone of the goddess that they rub and kiss, okay? Anyways, I'm not gonna get too much into that, but so after that, I end up in this other dream. Now, this other dream was also quite interesting. I feel like there's a lot of codes in it and a lot of interesting things, okay? So let's talk about that one. Okay. So then I get pushed into a dream where I am walking out of somebody's front door. Okay. And I'm getting my bearings a lot of the time when I'm in the dream world. I have to kind of like, I'm just placed in the middle of somewhere. And then I kind of have to like figure out what's going on. And then as I start moving, I start looking around. It's almost like I start to absorb the story of myself in this space. Okay. And so that's what I was doing. So literally, I caught consciousness in the middle of me opening somebody's front door and walking outside. Now, as I'm walking outside, I see that there is, I think these are called like a pergola. It's like a kind of pavilion walkway kind of situation. And then if you see it, like the top of it is covered, but the sides usually are just like metal beams and the spaces in between the beams are open. So, I mean, it's not that great for like, I don't actually know what it's for, honestly, because usually like the top of it is so tall that it's not like it really gets rid of rain or anything, but I guess maybe it's like to black out the sun, I guess. I don't know, but it just seems really inefficient, but whatever. So I'm walking out of the front door and I'm under this pergola, and the sides of this pergola are wrapped in all of this red ivy. Now I'm going to do a Adventures in the Astrals about red ivy and poison ivy at some point. The villain. Okay, poison ivy. That's another story for another day, but red ivy is very significant, okay? Now, at the time, though, I did not know that these vines were red ivy. That's a whole nother conversation for another day, though. And so anyways, so the vines were wrapped around this pergola, creating kind of like walls, I would say. It wasn't all the way to the top so that you could see like past the ivy walls, and you could see that this house, these people that lived in this house, they actually had this huge property. And so their front door and their pergola was right next to these other huge vine walls, kind of like vines and bushes and things like that around this huge property. And I knew that we were somewhere in like the Caribbean or something. I just sensed that from the property we were on. So anyways, as I'm walking out of the door, I immediately sense that this is a restricted area for me. So I am only allowed to walk the pergola path. That's what I would say. So not only is it restricted by the vines, there's also like these energy wards there. Okay. So I could look out past the ivy vines, but I could not walk past them. Okay. So that's when I started figuring out that I was stuck in this place. So I was like, wait, why am I stuck in this place? So anyways, I look out past the vines and there's like a little clearing, and there is a like paved thing for cars. So there's a garage, but there's also like a paved part with bricks and stuff like that for if you want to park your car on the outside of the garage. So there's the family out there, okay? Now, these are white people. I don't know what type of white people. I don't know, like, specifically their background and things like that, but they're white people. And there was a man and a woman, a mom and a dad, and there was a special needs girl in a wheelchair, okay? Now, the girl and the mom were, like, laughing and having a good time, but the dad was not having a good time. And I started to figure out that he was not having a good time because the mom was, like, letting the girl curse. And he didn't find that to be, like, proper for her. And this girl was like 15, 16, something like that, but she had a cerebral palsy, and she also had a little bit of mental delay. Not a huge delay. She wasn't like regressed to like age 7, but there's a bit of a delay. And so he didn't feel like it was, he didn't feel like it was proper for her to curse. He kind of felt like, you shouldn't be teaching her those things because she is handicapped. Now, the interesting thing is that the mom definitely felt like, handicap doesn't have to do with her being a teen, which I agree to a certain extent. Like, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that serious. Letting your kid curse like once or twice or whatever, just to like get that thing out, like, ha ha ha, I'm cursing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I've got 5 kids, and you got to pick your battles, honestly. But what I did think was interesting was that he was kind of equating her not being able to curse with the idea of her being handicapped and not necessarily his standards. And that's where the mom was kind of like, you know, like, just because she's handicapped doesn't mean that, she should be treated differently than a normal child in certain senses. Okay. So anyways, as I'm kind of paying attention, I'm like, okay, but why am I trapped to this area? Now, let me say this. The next thing that happens, and this is interesting because one of the connections that I had to 823 as I was talking about this so many times was actually a book called Gods, Wars, and Serket, Serket, which is an Egyptian thing. And it talks about UFOs and things like that. I didn't finish the book, but this guy goes in, which is like secret, right? Serket is kind of like secret. This guy goes into how in certain shamanic cultures, where they do shamanic like things, called different things, but shamanic like, practices, they will specifically pick out people who have handicaps and special needs because they exist in a different world than most humans. And that schism between the standard world, okay, and this world that they exist in for in order to kind of cater to their needs sets up an interesting dichotomy where they are more able to go into the more subtle realms as well. Okay. And so he was talking about not only handicaps, but also what we would consider to be mental disorders like schizophrenia and things like that. Okay. And that's kind of like a theme that was coming up kind of in this dream, was that, and we'll get to this in a second, but that's kind of coming up in this dream was like, I'm not entirely sure that her spirit, excuse me, her spirit is not handicapped. Her body is handicapped. Because I could kind of see like her essence, and I'm like, she's not handicapped. And if he could see her past what her body looks like, he would understand what her mom is saying. So anyways, so I'm just kind of evaluating the situation. Then I'm like, okay, how far can I go on this property? So anyways, the pergola leads to like a bush on the side of their property. And that's as far as you could go. So I could only like literally walk down one path. Okay. So then next thing you know, there's like this commotion in the house. Now they couldn't hear the commotion, but I could hear the commotion going on in the house. So I go back into the house. I'm like, what's going on? Now, as I'm going back into the house, I noticed that this vine is not only red ivy, there's also duck flowers. Now, duck flowers have been coming up before this dream. Especially, I think it's also a connection. I also do have Jamaican heritage. And it is a Jamaican plant, as far also like a Caribbean plant. I think it's also in Belize, I think. Oh, is it Belize or Brazil? I can't remember, but I feel like that was significant too. So I want to mention that duck flower was also there as well. So I go into the house, and there is this space, and this space has all of these wooden panels. So you walk in and there's the kitchen. They have all these wooden panels and things like that. And this family like created a room out of these wooden panels, like a square room in the kitchen, very small square room in the kitchen. Okay. And so this was like supposed to be my room. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is that the wooden panels kind of look like piano keys. And there was a grandbaby piano in there. Is it a grandbaby piano? Ooh, child. I think so. A baby grand piano. And so I knew that that was my room. There was not much in there, just like a bed and a piano. And I knew that they specifically had it set up like that so that I would never feel super comfortable. Like I had to always be on my P's and Q's, because at any moment, any panel could open up, and it would open up to this very public space, which was the kitchen, not the living room, the kitchen. Okay. Now, past my room, past the kitchen, there was the living room. And I think there's a piano in the living room as well. Now, there was a spirit in there as well. Okay. So we're going to get into that, where I think that I was a spirit in this house that they had captured. And I'm not entirely sure that they knew what I looked like, but they just knew that I was captured. And they allowed me to move around also outside, because I guess they knew that I needed outside air or whatever. So they knew that they had captured a spirit, but they did not know that I was the spirit they captured. Now, I don't know how they became aware of me or whatever. I don't know. I don't really remember that part. So I had to be enclosed. Okay. The other being that was in the house, now this is the kind of weird thing. The other being that was in the house was not enclosed, okay? And she was white, so I'm not entirely sure that this other being was not either the sister of the handicapped girl, like they had two girls, or if this other essence was not the handicapped girl herself or another aspect of her. That's a whole nother situation, child. That's a whole nother situation. But she was not enclosed. And I'll tell you why she was not enclosed. So for her, she was overweight. And I'm not saying too much because, baby, I got quite a few pounds to lose right now. But I'm going to say why I'm saying that, okay? So she was overweight, she was lethargic, she was fatigued, like her hair was kind of thinning, like she just looked like she had a lot going on, okay? But I also knew that she was captured in this house as well as I was. Now, the interesting thing is that the commotion that was going on in the house was that someone had left this kind of disc. Okay. 9:24 right now. Like 9, 6, and 3 has been coming up a lot. Someone had left this disc. Okay. Now, I didn't remember what the disc did, and we'll get to that in a second too. I didn't remember what the disc did, but I did have a very strong knowing that they didn't want her to get this disc. Okay. Now, this disc was like and it's actually weird because I've actually seen something like this disc recently. And it is some type of energy device that holds blue energy. So the disc on the outside, if you're just looking at it, it looks like the bottom part is kind of like a cream kind of color, and then there's kind of like a opaque like top, and so the top half and the bottom half separate, and it looks like a donut, and then they clamp on to each other, the top and the bottom circles, okay, kind of like a donut. Okay, so there's a space in the donut of the bottom ring that has some type of metals and things like that that conduct some type of electricity. Now, on the outside, it looks like the ring itself is blue, but it's not actually the ring itself. The energy inside of it is blue, and it's radiating, and so it makes the disc look like it's blue. It's actually not blue, though. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time, and I'm going to say that this time, even though it's not going to be exactly on time, it's going to be perfect timing, because things inside are not ready yet. They're not ready yet, but I don't want it to go past a certain amount, because I want to be able to get up in the morning. Anyways, 9:27, that's 4 9s, period. Okay. So anyways, it was like this disc, okay, and I knew that they didn't want her to get this disc. So she was doing something where I guess someone in the house, I don't know if, because they had a maid, like these people were, I would say like top of middle class. They weren't like extremely, extremely wealthy, like old money, but they definitely had money. So I would say like really upper middle class, okay, almost to upper class. And I don't know if it was, like I said, the cleaning woman or someone who accidentally put this disc in this being, I'm going to call her being, in this being's path, okay? So what she was doing was she was trying to see if she could get the ring to come to her through like telekinesis. And I was like, ooh, this is interesting. Now, a little bit of background. Ooh, excuse me. Me and this energy were aware of each other, but it seemed like we weren't really like necessarily like friends or anything. Thank you, Ray.
I just want to see your reaction.
Ooh, that looks yummy. Okay, I had to get my food, child. Okay. Okay, I had to get my food, child. Okay. So anyways, it seemed like we were aware of each other, but we weren't really cool with each other like that. I don't think we had problems, but we just didn't vibe like that. So anyways, I was like, cool, I'm interested to see if she's going to get this disc. So she does. I'm telling you, immediately when she touched the disc, child. Immediately when she touched the disc, immediately. I want you to understand, immediately when she touched it, she was like super thin. Her hair came all the way back. And there was magic in the air. That's what I would say. There was magic in the air. And I was like, yes, where has the magic been? Like, where has the magic been? Okay. Now, the interesting thing is that I don't know that the magic, like that she brought the magic to the air. I think the magic was already in the air, but it was almost, this is kind of interesting. It was almost like we were in a state, 9:30 right now. Okay. It was almost like we were in a state where we couldn't see it and interact with it. And something about her touching that disc sent some type of charge, right? Maybe it's plasmatic stuff, sent some type of charge into the air where it shook the whole house into this state where we were able to see and interact with the magic again. Now, I'm also not entirely sure that just because we couldn't see it, that we couldn't interact with it, but there was like this perfect synchronicity of being in the state and seeing it. So this was like not, like there was no type of thing of like that magic wasn't real or whatever. And her and I, we were like not thinking that anyway, but we kind of forgot that like you can actually see it. Like you can see spiritual energy on a person. Like it's more than just aura. Like there's an energy. And so anyway, so she like united with her disc, and she immediately was trying to get up out of there. Okay. So I think that when she touched it and it sent a shock, I felt it first, so I don't know if it was like some type of energy frequency sent out first, and then they rushed inside afterwards because I guess it hit their reality. I'm gonna have to think about that because it's very interesting how it happened. So anyways, they rush in, and she's like trying to power up and stuff like that and everything like that, and trying to get out of the house. So she was confined, but she was not as confined as I was. And I guess that's because she didn't have her disc with her. So I think she did try to like get away, but they end up capturing her again. So they definitely could see her. So I saw that. And then the next thing I know, they like shut down all of the panels in my space. Okay. So I guess they're like, okay, we got 2 of them trapped in here, and if one gets out, then the other one's going to get out. And I happened to be in the space at that point in time, and so then I realized, like, once they closed all the panels, that I was also trapped in the panel room as well with the piano child. So I'm like, wow. But she was causing enough of a scene and havoc with her disc that it was kind of moving the panel, so they weren't closing all the way correctly. So it was definitely messing with the frequency wards that they put up, okay? The energetic magic wards, whatever that they put up. And so anyway, she ended up getting captured again. But as they were kind of like wrestling the ring away from her, I remembered, now this is interesting because this is right when like this Greek god show came out, and I was telling my friend about this dream, and she was like, oh, Lethe, which is the river of forgetfulness, is on Greek gods. I forgot what this Greek god show, I don't know if it's called Greek gods or if it's called something else, or I think it was called Chaos. That's what I just saw. I think it's called Chaos with a K. And so anyways, so as they're wrestling it away from her and stuff like that, it's starting to jog my memory that the reason why they have me confined to certain spaces is because I'm unfamiliar with this space. And since I'm unfamiliar with this space and they have me doing the same actions day in and day out, there's no triggers to my memories. And so my memories were actually what they were shutting down. So there was this veil or this lull of forgetfulness. And as I was watching her and I was seeing her fighting them, I was like, oh, I'm under a spell of forgetfulness. And I immediately said, Lethe. Now, I don't think that I actually like cognitively knew about the river of forgetfulness. Like I knew about the 3 rivers, and of course the main one that I knew about was Styx. Now I'm not saying I've never seen that before, because I probably have seen it before. I think even Ray did like an interview for this company that was called Lethe, I believe, or something similar to that. If that's how you pronounce it, child. If that's how you pronounce it, because the TH is also the D, okay? I don't know why I said that, but I feel like that was significant though. But anyways, I was like, oh, okay, I'm like being lulled to sleep and forgetting things. That's what they're doing here, and they don't want me to go anywhere that would trigger my memories. Child, so some type of way, we got trapped up in this house again, and I was like, okay, I need to remember. And as I was coming out of that dream, what they were telling me was that this is a very potent time to do. Ooh, I just felt a knock on my seat, child. Hey. Okay. Hey. I guess the spirits agree. Okay. I literally just got like, it literally felt like somebody kicked the bottom of my seat, which is crazy. Hold on, I gotta turn this car on, baby, because it's hot. Okay. Ooh, it's so hot up in here, child. Okay, anyways. So it was about remembering, okay? So it's 9:36 right now, 9:36. I'm telling you, that's been coming up so much. Now that little kick kind of threw me off, honestly. But what was I... Look, and I didn't forgot it, child. There was, hold on, let me make sure the CarPlay didn't come on. Child, I don't want CarPlay to come on. How do you even turn CarPlay off? I don't even know how to turn it off. Okay, I'm just gonna trust the process. Okay, so anyway, I'll just talk loud in case CarPlay comes on. Okay, anyways, so what was the last part that I'm forgetting? Because there was a last part to this that I feel like I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, okay, so what I wanted to say was, I think this was after this dream. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it was after this dream that I ended up having a different dream in a house that really reminded me of this house. It really reminded me of this house. And in this dream, I was actually, I don't know if it was an Airbnb or something like that, but it was like Ray and I and the kids were staying in this place. I'm just gonna call it a place right now. That we didn't own it, but it seemed like we were utilizing it. And we had some type of agreement maybe with the homeowners where we could use this house to do healings for people. Okay. And so the healings were very similar to what I would say Z Arrigo does. Now, there's a whole story with him that I'm going to say at a different point in time too. But if you've not heard of the Surgeon of the Rusty Knife, Please look it up, okay? But anyways, it was like I was in this home, and I had like this breakfast nook that I was working out of. So it was like I would like feed people and stuff and then help them with healing. So there was this one time where this woman came to me and she had these huge skin flaps. I've never seen this in my life. These huge extra skin flaps on her shoulders. And they were almost like shoulder pads. Like, and it was just skin. And she was in so much pain, and she was like, I've heard that you can heal. So can you help me with these skin flaps? And so I was like, okay, I'm not really certified to help with this, but let me just like check it and make sure that you don't have any veins. So I put my hands on her skin shoulder pad things, and I felt that there were no veins in there, that this was just extra skin with blood cells, blood vessels in it. And so then I took these butchered scissors, I kid you not, and then I cut them off for her. And then like I healed where it was bleeding and stuff like that. And she was so relieved by this. I was like, I'm so glad that I could help. And I feel like that's what it has something to do with. I feel like that's what this had to do with in some type of way. Okay, 10 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna go in 10 minutes. Okay, so I feel like that's what this thing had to do with, was like that we were being entrapped for like healing abilities, because there was something about this girl that I felt like at some point in time she would be able to completely heal herself. I'm not gonna lie to you. And that's a lot of what I'm doing with like these subliminals and things like that, like on the channel. So make sure you subscribe and do come back, is that I'm really figuring out self-hypnosis and just hypnosis in general for other people, and like to help out with that. Because I really believe that when you tap into these deeper brain states, which are really reality states, and you're able to consciously exist in those states, you can pull help from those states that will completely heal your body, will reroute your nervous system. I mean, it's so many things. It's too much to talk about right now. But I believe that this girl was like tapped to figure out how to heal herself. And so maybe in 10 years, she wouldn't be in a wheelchair anymore. So her spirit, her consciousness that was not handicapped, would be able to rearrange her body where her body would be normal. Would be functioning in a normal way. It would anatomically look correct and things like that. So I think that they were trying to like summon spirits that were like healing spirits to be able to help her out, you know. That's kind of what I felt like almost some people, like they use different spirits and things like that to like, you know, ask for certain healing or ask for certain miracles. And I feel like that's what we were there for. Which I thought was very interesting. So yeah, I feel like that dream is what I really wanted to talk about. If you've had similar dreams, I would love to hear about it. Zia Rigo is someone that I definitely have been looking into with these psychic surgeries and things like that, where they don't even have to be in an altered state. But the interesting thing that I thought with Zia Rigo is that he had a spirit named, Dr. Fritz, come into his body, and Dr. Fritz was actually the one performing these psychic surgeries. And so this is very much on par with like psychic surgeries, very much on par with like a partnership between a human and a spirit, a charged consciousness, a plasmatic being, that's able to actually impact living humans like in bodies. It's actually mind-blowing when you think about it. So they can actually like go into the body. Child, it's so much stuff going on. Oh, my friend just texted me about the full moon. Yes, I mean, that moon was huge. There was another moon that I saw like maybe last year in October or something. I'm not exactly sure, but I think so. And it was huge, but this one was even bigger, and it was yellow for a little bit. And then last time I saw it, it was white. It was humongous. I'm like, the activations are like off the charts. But anyways, maybe you're also being called to these deep states of memory. So that's what I'm working on. Maybe working on a self-hypnosis, a guided meditation for the channel, and some self-hypnosis videos to help with being able to tap into your deeper states and then pull out the healing and different things from those states. There's so much stuff, and I'm going to try to be a little bit more consistent. Like, I've got my hands in so many different things right now, so I need to like rein them in. But anyways, I hope that you found this insightful. I hope that it jogs something in your memory, and I hope that it inspires you to be ahead of time, ahead of schedule, and to remember, and hopefully to be able to see the magic. As always, if you have any questions or anything like that, you could always leave a comment down below, especially as the channel is still, growing and stuff. I'd love to chat. You can also email me, QuantumAcacias@gmail.com, and then check the description box for all the other fun stuff, okay? All right, my friends, bye.